Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Welu. Thanks so much for tuning in to Expert Insights, where we talk with industry leaders across modern financial services to discuss leadership and innovation. Let's get started. Hey, everyone. Joe Welu here. I am super excited about my guest today. Mr. Shant Banosian is with us. Shant, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to be here, and good to see you as always. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, little bit about you, and I want to please feel free to correct me if I get anything wrong. You are the undisputed top loan officer, top originator in the country, hands down. Your peak, you did over $2 billion in production, and you've consistently ran a majority purchase business and have now, for the past few years, been the number one originator in America. Do I have my stats correct?
Yeah, you are. Thank you. It's pretty cool. It's something I take great pride in. We got a lot of notoriety when we did over $1 billion in 2020. We did $2 billion in 2021. I think, I've been in the business on this side of the business now since 2008, really. And, so really, what's that, 15 years, going on my 15th year. And we've done almost $9 billion in business in that time. So we've cranked it out a lot in the last 15 years. And the secret is to my success is like the incredible people that I have on my team that have done it with me, that helped me build this. Certainly those kind of numbers are impossible if I was trying to do this by myself. And then, we're fortunate to work with a lot of partners, like real estate agents and financial advisors, some amazing clients. And then we work with, vendors and partners like you that help us, scale our businesses and do a great job. So certainly not all my success on my own.
Well, you're clearly the driver and totally agree. It does take great people and great team. Just for context, and then I want to get into your backstory. And I think one of the things that people misperceive a lot of times that people that operate at your level of success, right? And they're not just necessarily great humans. And you've always struck me, and I've gotten to know you over the last 5 years. Not only are you ridiculously successful, but you're also just a really good human, and you do a lot for your family. You do a lot for your community. And I want to weave part of that in. I want you to tell us kind of the backstory, but just to give a little bit of context, that kind of volume, a lot of people would assume that you have a team of 200 people that are doing all of that volume. Give us some context into how big the team is that supports it. And one of the things that always impressed me is the amount of customers that you still personally touch when you're doing that kind of volume. So maybe just start out there and give us a little bit of grounding on context.
Yeah. So the team today, we're hovering, between I'd say about 25 to 28 people at this point. Certainly it was a little bit bigger than that a few years ago at the height of 2021 refis, just like everybody else in our industry. We've got to, right size ourselves in the new environment. What I was after as we were building it from day one, when we went from one employee to 2 to 3 to 5 to 30, right? It's always about streamlining the process, creating a really great client experience. My goal ultimately always is to make sure that every interaction the client has, whether it's proactive or reactive, is they're talking to the right person, they're getting the right information. It's quick, it's concise, it's accurate, it's reliable. But I think a lot of loan officers wear a badge of honor of they have to do everything. They want to be a control freak. The only thing that you're doing at that point is you're just limiting the scope of how much you can grow, and ultimately who the client is going to be speaking to that's going to be getting the information they need. And so I've always tried to work on the things. I found that when you're building a business, and I'm sure you probably agree, every single person has their strengths, their superpowers, their weaknesses, things they love, things they don't like. And so I just try to focus and work on the things that I'm really good at and that I really enjoy to do. And then I try to find out what the things are that I don't like and that I'm not good at. And I try to hire people that love that stuff and are really great at it. So my experience too, internally and externally, is very well-rounded because, then everybody's getting what they need. And so it's helped me scale my business, and it's helped me deliver a better client experience. We're a big user of Net Promoter, and our Net Promoter has always been, one of the highest in the company, even at the volume scale as we've grown and grown and grown. And that doesn't lie. It's very transparent. And so we're always kind of looking at it every single week. We dial into how fast we're closing loans, our response time, our Net Promoter score,
your communication, by the way. And
Everything.
what I hear at the scale that you operate on, you pride yourself and your team of having impeccable communication throughout the entire process is one of my opinion. I want to get into, some specifics, but my opinion, one of kind of your keys to scaling has been you guys are really pretty flawless on your communication process. Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
we try to be. I mean, it's with a lot of like, trial and error and feedback. We look at feedback as a gift. I think a lot of people look at feedback and they'll take a survey or they'll take an email and be like, that person has no idea what they're talking about. And every single one of
Yep.
those piece of feedback, there's gold in there. And so
It's a learning
really,
opportunity, right? Every one of them.
it totally is. So we try to like, if you can really look, and I mean this wholly, like I never look at any part of our process like this is what I want to achieve because I think that's right. I am always looking at it from the eyes of a couple different people. What does a real estate agent need and want to run their business successfully? What does a consumer want as a part of their home buying journey? And like, what do they deserve? Like, if I was in their shoes running my business or going through my home purchasing experience or refinance experience, like what would I expect to grade it like a level 10 experience? And ultimately just try to deliver that. So I
And
think when
all
you
the
put
little
yourself
things
in
around it.
if you put yourselves in your customer's shoes, whether it's a partner or end user, you're always going to do better if you're just focused on delivering that type of experience. And that's what we try to
Yeah,
stay
it's
true to.
and you definitely do. There's no doubt about that. And I want to ask you some specifics on your process and whatnot. But before we do that, I want to hear the backstory, man. I don't think I've known you, gosh, it's got to be pushing 5 years or
Maybe
maybe
more
even a
than
little
that. I
more.
remember when you guys were first making the rounds, so very early
Yeah.
on with it. So
Yeah.
I bet it's more than that.
And so I don't know that I've ever really gotten, I know you as like Shant, the $2 billion man, but talk to us about how it all started, man. Like, how'd you end up in the mortgage business and take us to the early days?
It was completely by accident. I don't think anybody grows up wanting to be a loan officer, right? Like
Yeah.
unless it's
Yeah.
like your family business or something like that. But I graduated from college. I went to Bentley College here right outside Boston. It's a business school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, and it was 2002. Like so, there was like the whole .com thing was going on. A lot of hardware companies. Software was just kind of getting going, and so I was trying to figure out what I want to do. And ultimately, I fell on somehow I got the great idea that I wanted to be an attorney. And ultimately, I kind of quit my job, started applying to law school, and during that time, as I was kind of finalizing where I was going to go and everything. Ultimately, I ran into a friend of mine that just like literally of all places at the gym. And he was just telling me, hey, got into this business in the mortgage business. Obviously back in 2002, 2003, things were really hot in that world. And he was just telling me how much he enjoyed it. And so in my mind, I came up with the solution that I like sounded like I could be a loan officer by day, do 2, 3 loans a month and then pay for law school at night, kind of have a perfect
Perfect.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like it just worked. And ultimately I ended up kind of researching the business, getting hired by a small mortgage company that's no longer around, Champion Mortgage. And it was a New Jersey based company, kind of up and down the East Coast. I ended up working for them. I deferred the whole law school thing because I kind of fell in love, admittedly, with the business right away. And that was a great place because they taught me all about like establishing your value on the phone, how to work leads, how to organize your day, all that kind of stuff. Learned to be like really good on the phones. And ultimately, fast forward from 2003 to 2007, the world changed dramatically in the
Wow.
mortgage
Yeah.
business. And I was one of the last employees ever of what was then Champion Mortgage. It had been acquired at that point by Nation Star of all places. And so the mortgage business at that point was kind of like it was in flux. Like I didn't even know. Like
It was a disaster, right?
yeah,
I
like
mean,
I didn't have a job literally overnight. Like, they
yeah.
closed our whole world down. And so I had to make a decision as to whether I was going to stay in the mortgage business or go find something else to do. Like, all my friends were in software sales, all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, like I really did enjoy the mortgage business. And I had some friends that were still doing it. So I convinced a company out of Jersey, of all places, that I had some friends at. It's a small regional mortgage player called Superior Mortgage to let me open up their first branch in Massachusetts. And the cool part of that story is they said, we'll consider it, but you have to learn the business first. Cause like, coming from like a subprime mortgage company to like a retail lender that was offering Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA in the middle of 2007, 2008,
Different animal.
when everybody's trying to survive was different. So like I literally used to have to drive from Boston to New Jersey every Monday. I'd stay in a hotel there till Fridays. We did that for like 5 months until they were like, okay, we trust you. We finally feel like you guys have an idea of what you're doing. We'll let you open up your branch in Massachusetts. And, 4 or 5 months later, we opened up the first branch in Massachusetts of Superior. And, we had success. We grinded it out. It was 2008, 2009, 2010. We were just trying to, survive. But that time now was a huge gift because, I really learned how to hustle. I learned how to grow a brand and a network. I learned how to show up big time for my real estate agent partners at the time and my clients, because it was similar to feeling now. It was like there was a lot of uncertainty. The housing
Totally
market wasn't like
uncertain.
something that like everybody was looking to dive into at the time. It was like everybody was coming off like what had happened. There was short sales foreclosures.
Oh my gosh, foreclosures and short sales. I think back to that time, and I was in real estate at that time. And I mean, it was like disaster city, right? And so, take us into like, so you transition in 2007, 8, you're starting essentially learning the business ground up again, because subprime alt-A, really the subprime space was a different animal. Like, where do you even start? Like, how did you, at that time, it was, everybody was trying to figure out, like, is the world going to end financially? I mean, Lehman's collapsed in '08 and everything was going into foreclosure, and so many people were completely getting out of the business. So you had the guts to say, I'm going to lean into this business. And I'm guessing, maybe I'm wrong. I'm guessing you didn't have a bunch of money thrown at you to go start this thing.
I took
So
out a
like,
credit card. I didn't have any money. I literally I took out a credit card. It had a $10,000 limit on it. And because I came from that subprime world, I was very familiar with like lendingtree.com. At the time, Zillow was just getting rolling, lowermybills.com. We just bought some leads. We did that in order to like at least just have some day-to-day like
some deal flow,
conversations.
just created some deal flow.
Yeah, and we learned
Yeah.
the business that way. So I was learning what Fannie Mae was. I was learning what Freddie Mac was. I was learning FHA. I learned how to like warrant a condo, right? Like I didn't know any of this stuff coming from that previous world. And so while we were doing that though, I was out every day. In the mornings, I was getting breakfast with realtors. At lunch, I was at lunches with them. At dinner, I was out networking. I was at every single Chamber of Commerce, BNI, Rotary Club, like you name it.
Just doing the work, putting in
I
the
was
effort
everywhere.
every day.
And I went from being the person, like I wanted to establish, like literally at the time, I remember I was like, if I could just do like good market share in like these 3 towns, I'll be okay. And I'll be really happy. And that was like my goal. And then it started like, as you start showing up more and more and more in terms of, when I say showing up, I don't mean physically being present. Like as you start showing up more in deals, as you start being a person that people can call when they need something quick or when they need an answer, and you become like the person in your market that's the source of knowledge, which I became quickly without even really realizing I was becoming that person. But I was trying to make it. So like I was like always on. Then you start getting referrals to other people, especially in a time like we're in right now, where other people are starting to leave the business. When people get like, I come of the nature that when things get tough, I just work harder. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that when times get tough, people work less, right? And they just
get
like shut down.
paralyzed. They get paralyzed from the fear, right?
Yeah. So like if you go all in, right? If you go all in terms of like effort and then just like learning the market, like every market shifts, right? Like there's never going to be a market that we're in that's not different than the previous one or the next one, right? But like if you just shift with it, you're always going to do okay. You can't guarantee you're always going to do more business, but as long as like you're gaining market share, as long as you're kind of staying ahead of your competition and staying, innovative. And sometimes you don't need to innovate. Like I'm not sure that like
you're adapting though.
Yeah.
You're adapting to the environment. And one of the things I want to drill into is a lot of people think, they look at you, $2 billion man, like you had this magic touch. You must have you had a network of 5,000 people you started with. And what I'm hearing from you is like, you just flat out worked everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
I really did at that time. I didn't have this, like, it's funny. It's like when I first opened up the door, it's like my only network was like literally my friends and my family. Right. Like, and it's not like I don't have this huge family and I don't have like, I come from this enormous college. I went to a local school here, and but I just did what I did. I was at a conference a couple months ago, and a gentleman who started a really, really large real estate firm that's having a lot of success right now. He was telling his story too, and I really resonated towards it because he was just talking about like when he came to this country, he was later on in life. He's like, I came here, I didn't know anybody, I didn't go to college, so I didn't have any roommates, I didn't have a network, I just worked. He went door knocking, right? And like, so like, it was just like, you can make what you want, you can create your own network pretty quickly. It's even easier now, right? Like back then it was like, you had to really go out and do it. This is 2008. It seems like not that long ago. Social media didn't have the reach that it had back then, right? Like it wasn't, people weren't texting via communication.
Very immature at that time. Social was very immature at that time.
The CRMs that we had, like kidding me, like there was no such things as journeys and like the way to communicate with like, and video and all that kind of stuff. Like it was so much harder to get your name out there in broad. Whereas now if I like, and then of course you're also working hard. So you're not spending a lot of time like learning that stuff. You're just doing. And so like with some of the knowledge I have now, I think we could have grown it even more, but like you can't go back in time, right? You can just learn for the future.
What was it that you obviously had the right mindset to be able to go in that environment? And there's a lot of parallels, like different reasons the market's hard today, but a lot of parallels in terms of, wouldn't you agree, the fear and uncertainty that's out there, right? About the industry, there's parallels.
Yep.
And, what I'm interested in hearing about is like the mindset you had to have at that time, like not just being willing to work, but finding the optimism. Like what was it that was driving you?
Yeah. So you're just trying to like, I don't spend a lot of time, even today, about focusing around like what's going wrong around me. I really don't. Like, if somebody's like watching, the only kind of world you could see if you're not on my team is like watching what we're through in some social. Like, we're not spending a lot of time like focusing on what's going wrong. We're like focusing on what we can control. Like I've said before, like I cannot control the economy. I can't control interest rates. I can't control inventory. I can't control, what's going on with all the banks, right? Like I can't control any of that stuff. All I can focus on is like what I can control, my controllables, and that's my effort, my activity, and my actions. And so I just try to like really make sure we have that dialed in. And like right now, like I'm doing the same things that I was doing back then. And it's like I'm just focused on one, in my market, I want to be the efficiency and certainty person and speed, right? Like I feel like that matters in this market. I want to be the news. I want to pierce through all that noise. I just want to be the news for all things real estate and mortgage in my market.
You're educating the market. You're
Yeah.
controlling the narrative into the audiences that you serve. Is that correct way to say that?
100%. Education attracts. Education attracts all day long. That's why you're getting all these people that, ultimately like what an influencer is, right? Is like, it's just somebody who's got people's attention because they're putting content out, and not every single influencer is educating. But like the people that I'm attracted to in the real estate space, in the mortgage space, like I'm focused on like, I'm not focused on people doing funny stuff. Like I'm focused on people that are like putting good content out that like I can learn from. And then I feel like, so education attracts and information motivates, right? And so when I say that is like information totally motivates, because think about like all the buyers out there that aren't acting in this market where it's like maybe a good opportunity, all the sellers that are maybe afraid to list right now because they don't know what's going on. But if you provide them with information, you can inform them into action. And that's really important. And same thing in the mortgage world. The amount of advising that we have to do right now is more important than ever. And what's good about this market is that it's gone from urgency to uncertainty, right? Like we've seen like speed, then slow down, what's going on? There's all these, and then it goes back to urgency, then uncertainty. But like the more confusing it gets, in my opinion, the better it is for the best of the best, because then we become way more relevant. I mean, we all become more relevant because clients need us more for our information, our data, our experience, our relationships. And so like you can really stand out and offer value, like, because like a couple of years ago, like in 2021, right? Like what value did I really have to bring to the table, other than just being able to like make it happen? Like it was like the value then was like just execution. Like
the differentiation wasn't as dramatic. And now what you're stating, I believe in fundamentally, is that the differentiation is so substantial now between the people that are really world class at advising and educating. And that's something, I mean, education attracts. I love that statement. I think it's so powerful. We always talk about it, educating versus selling. So many people in this business think that they're in the sales business. And it's like you really have to reframe that if you want to achieve at a high level. And I think your points are just so on point with that philosophy.
Yeah. And thank you. And I enjoy it, frankly. Like I just like, for me, and it's like becomes a major, you got to devote time to like learning and self-educating and invest in yourself and making sure you're like constantly getting better, staying relevant, have the energy to do it, right? There's a lot that goes into it. But like, to me, it's a lot more fun doing it this way than, doing like the old school, like, here's my loan programs, here's my rates. Like, like there's not enough of that you could do that would grow your business at scale. And
you can't influence enough people, right? No. I mean, that's really what it's about, is if you want to influence and attract people to do business with you. If you want to attract people to do business with you, you have to have influence in the market. And the way that I see you generate incredible influence is the way that you educate the marketplace on what is really happening versus what they perceive to be happening, right? Which is usually part of the gap you have to close. So I want to bridge the gap a little bit from, so 07, 08, you're grinding, you're getting some success early. I can tell you were buying leads and doing whatever you had to do to hustle. When did it turn to a point where you're like thinking a lot bigger? Did you think that big from the beginning, or was
No,
there a point?
if I'm being honest, like there was a point where it switched for sure. So in 2012, the company I was at got acquired by the company I'm at now. So Guaranteed Rate acquired Superior Mortgage. And, I was doing probably like $45 million, call it, at my last year at Superior Mortgage, working like so hard. Like I remember I closed like 29 deals one month. It was like one of the last months when I was at Superior
And you
Mortgage. And I was
felt like you were going to die.
yeah, like literally, like I was like, if I could ever just do that again, like I was so happy. And then all of a sudden I get to this company and there's people doing literally like 10, 12, 15, 20, like so much more business times. Like there was people doing 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, 400 million. Like I was blown away. And I
So
literally
you're
was
all of
like,
a sudden immediately what was possible, you had a new perspective on what was
yeah,
possible. Like that was kind of the beginning of the turning point.
that was it. Like, and then I remember I went to some event where I was surrounded by like the top 50 people in the company. And I just realized that these were all just people that were just like me, just working smarter, more efficiently. And obviously we're doing things better than I was because like I was working 24/7 and I was like literally not doing even half the business. They were doing double or triple or quadruple the business I was doing. So, that was confidence, that created confidence in me knowing that like I got to know some of these people and just realized that like they were just working smarter than I was. And so I literally at that time started thinking bigger, that I had to, like, I was trying to do everything almost by myself. Like, I had very little help. I was definitely doing it the old school way. And I was like, all right, look, how can I become, the other part of it is I was also looking for fulfillment and freedom. Like, I don't care what anybody says. There's not a lot of, it's like, it's not really fun working 24/7. And like, that's all you do, right? Like, I wasn't like, I'm not going to say I was like absolutely loving that either. Like, I've always liked working hard.
Your life didn't feel full, right? I've been in those moments as well. And you certainly are missing out on things, right? And so that was important to you to have that fulfillment from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, 100%. And I was like, so these guys are doing much more business than I am, and they seem to be happier, right? So I was like, after that. So like, ultimately, it just like it caused, and so there's that. But the other thing that had happened at that point too was that I'd also been, as I'd been doing this more, I was also surrounded by a lot of really successful business people in other lines of business too. Some real estate teams, because real estate is a little bit further along in like the team development than the mortgage business
Yeah,
is, financial
definitely
advisors,
was.
things of that nature. So like, so I was like really starting to understand that like, I wanted to have a vision. I wanted to do more business. I wanted some fulfillment in terms of working with a team because I'm just better in a team environment than I am a solo practitioner. And then I wanted some freedom, right? I truly wanted freedom of like being able to have a family, have kids, have a wife, and enjoy all that too. So that was kind of like all those things kind of clicked all at once. And so I went on a mission to kind of, really I had to transform myself and identify what am I really good at? What I was really good at, being a rainmaker and being a visionary, right? So like I wanted to draw the business in, close deals, and then just like execute a vision and think big. So we started like, there's multiple hires that we've made over the course of time, whether it was building out my operations team, building out my sales team internally, building out marketing, building out business development, all people that have helped me scale my growth. There's a great book out there. It's called Who Not How. And so I hired a bunch of different who's that helped me, grow.
Figure out the how.
Yeah, figure out the how, right? Like, and so, I didn't know that book at the time. I wish it would have saved me a lot of time and energy.
I wish you could have sent that to me about 10 years ago, by the way.
Yeah,
It would have
same here.
saved me a lot of pain, buddy.
Slowly started. One of the challenges I had, admittedly, is because I grew my business and I was really in the business in 2007 and 2008. I also saw how quickly things could get taken away from you. And like I saw like how fast things change. So I was always probably a little bit afraid at the time to hire and take on expenses and grow. And that probably held me back a little bit. But at the time, we did it and we grew and we ended up growing faster than anybody throughout that time. And there was a learning in that in the sense that like, what I learned going through 2008, like if you look back at like the top 5 mortgage companies in 2007, 2008, each one of those years, and I don't even know who they were, right? But I guarantee you it's not the same that are the top 5 the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. But all those companies that were on the up and up and showed up for their customers, showed up for their staff, did things the right way and went all in during that time are now the top 10 mortgage companies that are around.
I want to play that back because it's so relevant right now. What you just said, the companies and the people that showed up big time for their customers during that time reaped tremendous benefit as the market turned to a more normal environment. Did I state that correctly?
That lesson and going through those times, I didn't value it at the time because I was just working, like, tunnel vision, you're working, but like, I'm really leaning on that stuff right now. It gives me great perspective to know that like, if I just like, I'm just trusting that if I show up for my clients, if I show up for my partners, if I work really hard, do things the right way and don't listen to the noise and just put blinders on, right? Like on the other side of this thing, this is going to be a thing that 10X is our business in the future, right?
You know what's on the other side of it, right? There's tremendous growth on the other side, like home ownership in America. It's not going anywhere.
No.
You know,
There's going to be millions of deals done every year. There's going to be trillions of dollars of loans. And like, we just need to have a pretty small piece of it to be really happy and to do a great job,
yeah,
And so
yeah.
like that doesn't mean you don't shift with the business. You don't adapt with the business. Like, I've done a lot of things to be able to stay more like, we're always focused on how can we be more efficient? How can we drive better experience, all that stuff? How can we utilize technology? But like, all those things are always going to change. Right. And so really like, those are the things that like, and then we just constantly worked on figuring out a way to grow the business, communicate within the team. There's a lot of ceilings that we hit, a lot of experiences that like, I wish we didn't go through at the time. Like they weren't fun going through, but like, you learn and you get better and like you get more resilient, you build really strong relationships. Unfortunately, everybody that started with you in terms of clients, partners, or team members ends up with you at the end, but that's like part of the journey. Like it's
part of the journey, man.
It's like make believe to think that like everything's going to go easy and everybody's going to stick with you. It's like, there's not a business story out there for some of the most successful businesses out there that haven't gone through all that stuff. And like, we're going through them all. Unfortunately, we got a lot more wins than we have losses.
Yeah, no, well, it's easy to see why. I mean, the things that strike me is you have the ability to always have an incredible perspective with what's going on. And how do you translate that to your team, right? I'm in a lot, and I'll give you an example. I'm in a lot of offices across the country, and you can just tell people are struggling. There's tremendous change, tremendous uncertainty. Their energy's off. Like, how do you instill that in your people?
One is it's in your actions, right? Like they see you, they talk to you, they know if you're being true to who you are and like how you're actually like my team sees what I'm doing all day, every day. Like I'm never not on once I walk through here. Like once I get here at 8 o'clock, I'm on until like, whenever I leave, I'm on. And even when like they need me, I'm available and accessible to them to support them. But the other part of it is like, you just have to have consistent communication. Like, we talk a lot as a team on a weekly basis. We have huddles, we have meetings, we have one-on-one chats. And like, you know what? I'm kind of like a broken record, right? Like
you're very intentional about this. I can tell, like you're very
100%,
intentional.
Very. Yeah. And like, you know what? I'm talking about for the last year and a half. If you talk to one of my teams, what's Shant talking about? Stick to the basics, get back to basics, get back to basics, get back to basics. Focus on what you can control, right? Like I can't control all that other stuff. All the stuff I said to you, I'm saying to them all the time. Focus on what you can control.
Push the obstacles out. Don't see the obstacles.
Yep.
Right?
How many calls can you make? How many follow-ups? Like how fast, speed to lead? Like, are you thanking your partners? Are you communicating with your partners? Like, are you giving them a next level experience? Are you communicating our value proposition every single time? Again, we didn't have to communicate our value proposition for 2 years. In 2020, 2021, 2022.
It just rained money from the sky, right? And
like your value proposition literally would just like, not entirely, I'm simplifying it and kind of exaggerating, but it really just like, as long as you picked up your phone, there was such an oversupply of mortgage need that as long as you answered your phone and could execute a closing, like for the most part, you were going to be busy, right? And like, if you could do a better job than everybody else while doing all that stuff, you're going to be extremely busy. But like,
even if you were mediocre before, right? Mediocrity gets punished in
100%.
These environments.
Yeah. And then the last part is you got to take care of yourself and you got to stay super positive, right? So it's really easy to just talk about being positive, right? But it's a lot of hard work, right? And so like, it's easy to be positive if your energy levels are super high. Like when you wake up tired, you're not going to be positive all day. When you wake up coming out of bed, you're fired up, you're well rested, recovered, you're going to be positive, right? If you're focusing, like I spend a lot of time reading good positive content that's going to help me be a better business person or be a better leader or be a better version of myself. I read every single day.
So I want to drill into that a little bit because this is such a powerful nugget. What I'm hearing from you is something I believe in as well. Your daily habits are intentional around doing what you need to do to be in the right headspace, the right mindset, physically, mentally. Give us, you mentioned one of them, daily habits, rituals, some people call them, but you read positive or consume positive content, which I think is amazing. That's key for you, right? Just getting in the right headspace.
100%. And what happens is, like, as you're reading consistently, like literally every single day, when I'm in my car, I'm listening to like podcasts. Like I'm big into listening to like what successful people are doing. So like I'm trying to listen to people that are like motivating or, have success stories, right? What happens if you do that? One, it changes the internal dialogue in your head. Two, it slows everything down when stuff's going wrong and allows you to how to kind of fix it on the fly. It like puts everything almost into slow motion. And three, it always shows up like when you're having a conversation or when you're in a meeting, like it allows you to kind of have the right perspective or always find the right words to lean on or give the right advice. So you're just like giving yourself fuel for like, it's amazing how like I'll read something that morning and then like 2 hours later, I'm like applying
It just comes,
Yeah.
to you. You don't think you're retaining it, but
Yeah.
it's there in your subconscious.
Yeah, you just handle stuff better. And so, I mean, in general, like the more positive people, and I'm talking like true positivity. I'm not talking like the fake positivity. I'm talking like just in general, people that have better perspective on life tend to do better. So again, that's why it's easy to say, but like it takes like, you have to, I read daily. I have for years. Right. I'm like just taking in information all the time. I meditate every single day. Honestly, that was something I picked up about 4 years ago. First thing I do every single morning, the
So
headspace.
I've wanted to try it. People tell me it works. You're telling me it works, and I trust
100%.
you. How long do you meditate for?
10 to 15 minutes every single day.
Are you using an app or just doing
Yep.
it on your own?
I use the Headspace app. You know what? I'll tell you what. I read this book. It's funny. I read by Tim Ferriss. He came out with two great books. One was called Tools of Titans. The other one was called Tribe of Mentors. They're like, each one's like 500-600 chapters, but they're all like 2 or 3 pages. And it's like some of the most successful people in their field in the world. And like, I felt like 70% of them were like, what are like one of their topics or habits was like meditating. And I'm like, well, like clearly I'm missing out on something here if like all these other people are doing it. Like I had all these preconceived notions about like what it was all about. And like, it was like this earthy, crunchy, like, but it's honestly been great for me. To me, it's just like, it's something I look forward to every single day. It just centers me. It also, same thing. It slows down the thoughts in your head, slows down everything. And just like, it's almost like a weightlifting for your brain is the easiest way I would say it. Just like you have to
Well said.
lift weights to stay strong. Like, I believe that like meditation does that for your head. And certainly I have a lot to learn, right? Like I don't have any certificates or anything like that. I'm just knocking out the Headspace app, but it's something that at this point I crave and I'm non-negotiable on. Like I always find time for it every single day.
Yeah, man. And you have so much humility, right? That's what strikes me as we get into what's made you successful, like the humility that you have, and it's so authentic. And has that always been something is that just how you've been wound? Just so humble?
I try to stay humble because like it's just kind of who I am. It's how I was raised. I don't feel like just because you have success means you should be like it should change you. Like if any, I mean, obviously it's an amazing thing, but in terms of like how you act towards other people, certainly we all have an ego, right? I have one, right? You just try to like, stay true to who you want to be, who you want your kids to, know you as, and like your friends and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been pretty like, I'm just trying to like, I'm not so much, I honestly, and again, part of it is like the whole blinders thing. If we're being real, like I don't really get too hung up. Like I don't really worry about too much of what I've already accomplished. It's probably something I could work on a little bit in terms of like enjoying it a little bit more. I'm kind of always like focused on like
You're looking forward
where I'm going,
So what's next, man? What's your vision as you look out the next 3 to 5 years? You've done more than any originator ever, and you're working arguably probably as hard. I mean, you're out in the market every single day. You're doing events, you're educating your customer base, your realtor partners, all of these. You're like taking action every single day. So you're obviously not slowing down. Like, what's the next part of the vision?
Yeah. So this isn't just like me saying it, because I got asked this question the other day, as all the rankings started coming out, we did some interviews and all that kind of stuff. And somebody asked me like, hey, where are you going to be in 5 years? I was like, no BS. This is one of those years. Last year was an extremely difficult year. This year is going to be an extremely difficult year in the housing market, right? Because, I'm just focused on like the next 12 to 18 months, right? Like I kind of made a deal with myself that like, I don't really care where I'm going to be in 5 years or 10 years. I know that like, obviously I care, but like, I know I'll be where I need to be and want to be if I just nail the next 12 to 18 months. Like I feel like it's this next year and a half is going to be transformational for the people that show up and nail it. And there's going to be a bunch of people that don't show up. There's going to be transformational in the sense that they're either become irrelevant or they're out of the business. But the people that show up, like if I literally just want to like dial in and just be laser focused on this year, so I could kind of stop thinking about like professionally where I want to be in 3-5 years, because I know I'll get where I need to be if I just nail the next 12 to 18 months.
I think that's so exceptionally well said. And I think there's so many people worrying about what they can't control outside of this, when the reality is just executing every single day right now and showing up, as you mentioned, puts you in a position to win. And it's super clear, right? And we both see this. The people that don't have that right mindset, they're really struggling right now. And so it's clear to see why you guys are still doing exceptionally well, even in this environment, from just your process. Man, thank you so much for sharing so many awesome nuggets. And, as you can appreciate, I think there's a lot of people out there right now that are trying to think to themselves, hey, what do I need to do? Right. And your perspective is incredible. Parting thoughts, advice to somebody that's really struggling to navigate this environment. What would be your couple pieces of advice?
Yeah, I think, you got to look back at, most of the people that have been in this business have already kind of done it before, in the sense that you've already created something from nothing, right? So like you already have the answers to the test in terms of like what you had built and obviously the challenges that we're going through right now. So like go back to like how you did it and just replicate it all over again with the knowledge, the experience that you have and the relationships that you have now, right? Like, so like back then we all had zero and we built these incredible businesses. Now,
and you didn't have the technology, you didn't have the automation, you didn't have the data, you didn't have any of it.
You didn't have any of that. You didn't have all the self-knowledge of everything. You didn't have any relationships, right? Like nobody just woke up with like this natural network. Like we have so much. So it's like, but you have to be willing to get down and dirty again and do some of the stuff that as you get older in your career, right? And further along in your business, that maybe some people are unwilling to do. Like I'm willing to do all the stuff that I did day one.
Whatever it takes. Be willing to do whatever it takes.
And then just like be intentional, right? Like, it's the business doesn't just happen. Like, in terms of like, if I just worked really hard, would I do more business than not working really hard? Sure. But like, if you work really hard and have a plan of attack and understand what you're trying to accomplish, how much business you want to do, what kind of leads you want to drive in, who you want to partner with, what it's going to take to successfully do that. Like
map it out.
Like, yeah. And then work on your business. So like, it's like too many people act like salespeople. Whereas like, if you want to build a big business, you need to think and act like a business owner. You can't just think like when I hear the word loan officer, like I think salesperson. When
you think transactional, you think that's what differentiates you so much, is you never fall into that category.
Absolutely not. Like I love working on the business, but you have to have a plan and you have to match it up with really hard work and you have to have great perspective. But you've already done it, I guess, is the parting message. Like you've already successfully done it. So you have to replicate it, but you can replicate it with all the stuff that you have now that you've learned, whether it's technology, relationships, experience, knowledge, money, all that kind of stuff. So just, are you willing to go all in again? Right. And if the answer is yes, then do it. If the answer is no, then like, I'm not happy. I don't see like a happy future. Cause like, this is going to be like a difficult 12 to 18 months, but it's going to create a massive opportunity. Like I can tell you there's some person that's entering the first year in their business right now, right? That's going to be a superstar in 5 years. Right? Guaranteed. There's a bunch of people that are entering for their first year that don't have any baggage and they're just forward thinking, blinders on.
Yeah. They don't know any different.
And they're going to be some of the best loan officers in the country. Right. And so like, to me, I'm looking at this like this is a way for me to 10x my business if we nail it, and I plan on nailing it. There's no other option, in my opinion. And
burn the boats, baby. Burn the boats.
So like it's that's kind of like, it's very intentional. It's intense. I'm all in and I want to win. So like that's kind of like,
I think
it's not that hard. It's a simple message,
It's really that simple. You heard it from the $2 billion man, guys. Are you willing to be all in? I think that's the quote of the day. Are you willing to be all in? Thank you, Shant. I really deeply appreciate the time.
I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun for me.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.